Hannibal has configured his army in a unique semicircle. On the flanks, the Carthaginian cavalry commander detaches part of his force to help the Numidian light on the opposite side of the battlefield.
With a nearly 4-to-1 advantage, the Carthaginian cavalry makes short work of the Roman cavalry on the flanks.
In the center, the Roman infantry drives Hannibal back. But it's a ruse. Hannibal is giving ground on purpose.
And this is why Hannibal originally assembled his men in a semicircle. He knew that the center would give ground, and he knew his flanks would hold. Slowly the center collapses, and the Romans would think they're winning and commit more troops in the center.
The original bow shape of the Carthaginian line now resembles a V.
As Hannibal's infantry flexes inward, the Roman units are drawn deeper and deeper into a V-shaped line. And as they go further, they get completely packed together.
Pressed into this V, the Roman infantry can only move in one direction, straight ahead.
Livy, one of the Roman historians, tells us the pressure was so great that Roman soldiers' arms were forced against their bodies. They could not lift their swords.
On Hannibal's signal, the African phalanxes turn in toward the middle and crush the Romans from the sides. Hannibal blocks in front. The African infantry squeezes the side. Hannibal's older brother, Hasdrubal, uses cavalry to slash from behind. The Romans are jammed into a kill box.
Hasdrubal the Brilliant now rides around in back of the Romans, hits them in the rear. This is a famous double envelopment. It had never been done in the history of warfare before. Never. And it's a brilliant maneuver.
What Hannibal realized is that while the Roman army is nearly unstoppable as it attacks straight ahead, its mandibles can only move forward and back. They cannot turn and they cannot envelop. And if you know exactly how your enemy is going to fight, it's not that hard to figure out how to defeat it.
By the time the sun sets, Hannibal has slaughtered an unbelievable number of Romans.
The Battle of Cannae was so full of death that it gave rise to a new term in military terminology. It's called the Battle of Annihilation. The Battle of Annihilation. The enemy wasn't defeated, it was annihilated.
Cannae ranks as one of the deadliest and most brutal battles in history. More than 70,000 Romans are butchered in a single day.
70,000 dead, killed in an area only twice the size of Central Park. Ask yourself, this is an age before mechanical weapons. How long does it take to kill 70,000 human beings with swords and spears, one at a time? The answer seems to be about 6 hours.
Hannibal is on the verge of realizing his dream of Rome's destruction. But the victory at Cannae will actually mark the end of Hannibal's military success on the Italian peninsula.
After the battle, the commander of the Numidian cavalry, Hannibal, urges Hannibal to march immediately on Rome. But Hannibal refuses. This leads Hannibal to exclaim, "Hannibal, you know how to conquer, but you do not know how to use your victories.
Hannibal might believe that Rome will finally bow before him and surrender after their devastating defeat.
Or maybe he realizes a siege of Rome will be impossible to maintain without reinforcements and supplies. Cannae is about 260 miles away from Rome, so he gets close, but not close enough.
Whatever the reason, the destruction at Cannae is the closest Hannibal ever gets to fulfilling the blood oath of revenge he made to his father.
Hannibal does try to negotiate a peace deal with the Romans after Cannae, but the Romans refuse. In fact, the Romans actually outlaw the word peace. No citizen could ever consider it out loud.
Ultimately, the Romans decide to return to the Fabian strategy of containment. Instead of trying to beat Hannibal on the battlefield, they will try to outlast him.
Think about this for a minute. Rome, with all their imperial destructive ways, says, you know what? We can't beat this guy. We can only harass him. We can only contain him.
Hannibal was able to get many of the southern Italian towns to defect to him, so he was able to live off the land. But try as he might, he can never fulfill his oath to his father. He never burns Rome to the ground.
For all his triumphs on the battlefield, Hannibal's campaign must be seen as a failure. He eventually abandons his quest to destroy Rome and sails back to Carthage.
If you want to think about a more modern example, you could look at Robert E. Lee. During the American Civil War, Lee won nearly every one of his battles, but ultimately lost the war.
No matter how many battles you win, the ultimate goal of a battle is a means to an end, to win the war strategically. From that perspective, Hannibal's campaigns were a failure. The individual battles were victorious, but the strategy of bringing Rome to heel and making it sign a peace treaty, it failed. You don't get any points in warfare for trying.
The greatest irony of Hannibal's invasion is that it sets in motion the events that will turn the Republic of Rome into an empire that will conquer the ancient world.
Had there been no Hannibal, had there been no Second Punic War, there's no reason to suspect that Rome would ever have expanded to the degree that it did.
Hannibal's tactics and stealth, his bloodlust and determination, his savagery and genius are all taught to modern military commanders throughout the world. But the greatest lesson might be that while Hannibal could annihilate the armies of Rome, he could not ultimately destroy Rome.